Hello to everyone listening to us. I am Renata, the conference host, and our today's special guest is Dr. Laura Markham. She is a clinical psychologist and the author of the best-selling books Peaceful Parents, Happy Kids and Peaceful Parents, Happy Siblings. Welcome, Dr. Laura.
Thank you for inviting me.
It's a gift to have you with us, and it's a double gift for me because today I'm turning 41. So I'm gonna never forget that day.
Happy birthday, that's wonderful.
Thank you. So we agreed to talk today about siblings. And while I was waiting for our meeting to start, I was wondering why we have this, we as parents, we often have this illusion that as soon as we tell our younger child, there's another one coming to our family, the child will experience this tremendous joy and happiness. Like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have a friend for life. Like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have someone to play with. But it rarely happens that way, right?
And if it does happen that way, it's misinformed. My own son, when he was 3, begged us for a little sister, begged us. And I'm embarrassed to say this, but he begged us, he said, because then when you and daddy are both on the phone, I'll have someone to talk to. That's embarrassing. But then when she was born, he said, she can't even play with me. And that was the whole point. So even if they are happy, and he was happy initially, but once they're born, it's not at all what they expected. It's this helpless little creature who takes all of the attention away from them. So it's almost like they got told one thing, but then given another. They can't see the long game. They can't see this child, the baby will grow up and play with them. No, they see it as it's a problem.
And it's a very sensitive topic in so many families, I guess, because even if they love each other, and they do, they love each other, but still, like most of them at times, gonna experience this jealousy and rivalry towards each other. And I was wondering, do we have a role to play here? Parents, how much involved should we get into their relationship?
I think if we don't play a role, then we are not giving our children the basic support they need. Think about it. If our child doesn't like school or doesn't like homework, we would take that seriously and we would try to help and give them support to make that work for them. If they were having a very hard time with their friends, we would think that wasn't good and we would give them support to work things out with their friends and learn basic social skills, right? But with their siblings, we somehow think, oh, let them work it out. Well, it's so much more important, in fact, in their development than friends are, because these are the people who live with them all the time.
Yes.
It's even more important than school, because in their sibling relationships, they learn the skills to navigate every close relationship for the rest of their lives. That is what will make them successful at work. That's what will help them have closer relationships with their partner eventually. And even to be a better parent, because it helps them learn to work out conflicts with other human beings. And yet we parents so often don't think we have a role to play. Actually, it turns out the research shows that parents have a huge impact on how well children get along. And there are many things parents can do differently to help children get along better.
Before we jump into that, what we can do or what we mustn't do, in your workbook, Peaceful Parent, Happy Kids, you talk about preventive maintenance that we should have with children.
All kids, yes.
What is it?
Well, if you think about your car, when you drive your car, you have to do some preventive maintenance on it. It needs an oil change, or the engine will seize up and not work. It needs to have other, you have to refill the windshield wiper fluid and make sure there's gas in the car. There are all kinds of things that if you don't do them, your car will not run and it will end up in the breakdown lane at the side of the road. And once you're in the breakdown lane, you don't have any options. You just have to call a tow truck, right? There's nothing you can do. I think of living with children as being a little bit like that. Parents say to me all the time, well, but here I am at my mother-in-law's house for dinner, and my child has a complete meltdown and is screaming and yelling and screaming terrible things at me. And I'm so mortified in front of my mother-in-law. What could I do then? Well, you're already in the breakdown lane. There's not much you can do then. But if you thought about it that morning before you ever went to your mother-in-law's for dinner, you would have done a few things differently. You would have made sure to have some one-on-one time to connect with your child. So they felt close to you and they got enough attention from you then. Because later at your mother-in-law's, when they're tired and they feel disconnected from you and they have felt disconnected all day, they're not going to listen to what you're telling them, right? Because the only influence you have is the relationship. But if you worked during the day to connect with them more, to empathize with them more so they felt heard and understood, to have some one-on-one time playing with them, to notice if they're grouchy, if they're in a bad mood, and to allow those emotions to say, you seem sad, or you seem really mad. This isn't what you wanted. When you give them a snack early in the day and they say, no, that's not what I want. You know, instead of just being, well, sorry, that's what you get. You could say, you're having a hard time today, aren't you? Nothing seems to be going the way you want. If you can help a child with their emotions, they work through those emotions. If not, if they just have to stuff the emotions all day long, by the time they get to your mother-in-law's, forget it. You have to be in the breakdown lane. You didn't do the preventive maintenance. So there are all these things you can do even before you go to your mother-in-law's. If your child is getting worked up and excited, but like a little frenzied, do some laughing with them. Pick them up and toss them around if they're small enough. If they're not, run around the house and chase them. When we laugh with children, it changes their body chemistry. It actually decreases the stress hormones and increases the bonding hormones that make them more open to your influence, your direction, your correction. So when you do go to your mother-in-law's, they're not as frenzied. They're a little more able to manage themselves. And when they do start to get a little bit worked up, you can stop them and say, hey, sweetie, remember we talked about this? At your grandmother's house, we have to be quieter because in this apartment downstairs, there are people who hear you. And also your grandmother, she's old. She can't handle lots of noise, you know, but your child is more likely to listen to you because you've done all that preventive maintenance all day long. And if we do preventive maintenance with our kids, if we just build it into our schedules, if we make it a habit with our children all the time, we find our children are so much happier and more cooperative in general. They're easier to live with. So it's worth any extra time up front, because we spend lots less time in the breakdown lane tearing our hair out.
For parents listening to us, that might seem like a second full-time job.
Yes, it does. It does. I understand that. And that's because we're not used to it. We think parenting is what you do when the child misbehaves. But actually, parenting is what we do so the child doesn't need to misbehave. It's not normal for children to spend all their time misbehaving. It's normal for children to forget and engage in childish behavior, to laugh and run around and be loud and be exuberant. It's also natural for children to feel overwhelmed by their emotions and to get very mad. But it is also natural when we say, oh, you're having such a hard time, for them to then tell us what a hard time, and then to suddenly, you know, they're through it, they're past it, they can get sunny again. And the more we help children with their emotions, the better their behavior. So the less time we actually spend in those negative interactions and the more time we spend having positive interactions. So you're basically trading in your negative interactions to do this preventive maintenance, which is positive, which is much more fun for us. It's so much more rewarding. You know, those times as parents that life is hard, when our children are being, we think, how could he be such a brat? How could he be so terrible? He's going to end up being a criminal. You know, when we have those terrible thoughts and we worry that we're terrible parents, we can get rid of most of that. We can just have positive interactions. Now, you're right, they take time, but they don't take any more time than the negative ones. And they're so much more rewarding. First of all, they raise a happier child who's easier to live with, and who is going to grow into a more responsible, considerate adult who's emotionally healthier. But also they put the joy back in parenting for us. They make it so much easier to be parents.
So what you are saying is that it might seem more time to invest into this preventive maintenance, but when we kind of build capital, we can rely on in these troubled times. and we can, it's like refilling children cup, so they know how to deal and how to cope in these troubled times. I
love that. We build up capital. It's like a bank account. You can then withdraw during the troubled times, and you have more influence with your child. You can't control another human being, and you wouldn't want to. They have free will, right? You wouldn't want to crush your child's spirit, but you want influence, and the influence comes from the relationship. It comes from that capital that you build up.
So special time, laughing, roughhousing, empathy. And still, I guess, life would happen, right?
Yes,
and
of course.
Conflicts will arise, and we'll have, all those troubles. Let's say we have, I don't know, 2 toddlers, fighting in our living room. It's so easy to take sides, to decide, which one is wrong and which one is right. And we do that, or we lecture them, or we label. And of course, that worsen the relationship, because then they get, anxious about mom loving one sibling more than the other one, or then resenting the other children. What do we do instead?
Well, you did such a beautiful job describing what parents can do to increase sibling rivalry, right? Mm-hmm. But there is another way to do it. What you can do is you can understand. So start with your own, what goes on inside your own head always, and understand that both of your children, or all 4 of your children, or whatever you've got, have, they're not wrong. They're not bad. They may have done something that is not okay, like hit their sibling, or even been mean to their sibling, or said something very mean, but they have a reason for that. They have needs and wants that are just human. We're all human, and we've all done things that were mean or not okay to someone else, right? We've all done them. Even as adults, we've done them. So we can give our child a little forgiveness, a little grace, and we can say to ourselves, our child is not trying to be mean and bad. They're trying to express their own wants and needs and desires and hurts and fears and feelings. And we can go into every situation that involves an altercation, a conflict between more than one child. We can always go into those conflicts not looking to make someone wrong or bad, but looking to help everything calm down and help the children develop skills to learn to listen to each other and work things out with each other. Because that's what is so great about sibling conflicts. They're natural. They're going to happen, and kids can learn from them. They can learn skills that they will use for the rest of their lives. Our job is not to go in and settle the conflict. That would not teach the children anything. Our job is to go in and settle all the big emotions. So we can help the children learn to express themselves constructively to each other, to listen to each other, right? And here's how you would do it. You would go in and you would say, whoa, whoa, whoa. I hear some loud voices. You 2 are pretty mad at each other. Now, if they're toddlers, really like literally 2 and 3 years old toddlers. I mean, if they're 4 and 6, you could do what I just said. But if they're 2 and 3, you probably can't. If they're 2 and 3, you would say, whoa, whoa, no hitting. That's where you start, no hitting. And you get right in between them and you pull them apart, because that's what toddlers are doing. One of them is yanking each other's hair and the other one is hitting them, So you get in between them, you pull them apart and you say, ouch. And you empathize with the hurt. That, ouch, that hurt your head, didn't it? Yes, your brother was pulling your hair and your sister was hitting you. It wasn't she? Ouch, that hurt. So you're empathizing with both kids. You don't know who started it. You don't even care. And it wouldn't even matter if you did know. Let's say he had the toy and she tried to grab it from him. It wouldn't even matter if that's what happened, because last time he grabbed the toy from her. They're always going to be doing this. They're toddlers. Toddlers have to learn how to use their words instead of their fists. So you're always working in a more physical level with the 2 toddlers, right? And you're going, ouch, ouch, ouch. And you're empathizing with both. And you're saying, let's say that your daughter who's just had her hair pulled and has been hitting is still trying to hit her brother. Okay. Let's say you would turn to her and you would say, you really want to hit your brother. No hitting David. Don't hit David. You would say to her, that hurts, David. You can use your words. You can tell David, don't pull my hair, because that hurt your hair, right? You can say to David, no, don't pull my hair, right? But no hitting. right? And she goes, no, David. And she doesn't even know how to say, don't pull my hair. She says, no, David, right? And you say, that's right. You have something important to tell your brother. No hurting your hair, right? And he says, let's say her name is Mary. He says, no, Mary, he says to her. And you say, that's right. And you're telling Mary, no, don't hurt don't hit me, right? You're saying to Mary, don't hit me. So you're just giving them the words so that they can do that instead of the physical altercation. And you put your arm around each of them. You keep them apart. You say, you are so hurt and you're so sad and mad. That really hurt. You're sad and mad. By now they've completely forgotten what they were grabbing from each other. All they know is that their head hurts or they hurt where their sister hit them or whatever, and they're mad. But very quickly, they even forget that once they've gotten what we're trying to do is we're trying to acknowledge their feelings and give them the tools to do something besides hit each other. That's if they're toddlers, right? If they're older, and you can, if you know what they were fighting about, you can just take that thing and move it out of the way and they will forget about it quickly. Or you can teach them, if they're a little bit older, 3 and 4, you can teach them a rule about sharing. You can say, David had the whatever it was. Maybe you even saw it and you know David had it. If you don't know who had it, you just put it away for now. But you can start a rule that says whoever has the thing gets to keep it until they're done with it. You can say, David, you were playing with the truck. And Mary wanted the truck, right? And you wanted the truck, right, Mary? You want to play with the truck too, right? And David, you had the truck, right? When you're done with the truck, will you give it to your sister? Now, the reason to do that is that if we just grab the truck away from David and give it to, say, you've had it long enough, and we give it to Mary, what have we just done? David is angry at Mary. He's going to grab it back first chance he gets. If he doesn't, if he's not allowed to have it, he'll pinch her, right? He'll do something. He'll pull her hair again. So the best rule on sharing is to let them decide when they're done with it. Now you might say, but then poor Mary doesn't get the truck. David doesn't have a very long attention span. David's going to be done with the truck soon. He's going to get, and when he gives it to Mary, you know what will happen? You'll be again building the sibling relationship, the bond, the trust, because he'll give her that truck and she'll say, oh, my hero, my brother, you're giving me this. Thank you. She suddenly is filled with love for him. And he looks at that look on her face and he's like, because we're designed to do this. We're human beings. Human beings are a social species. There's a lot of research that when we share, when we give something to someone and we see that response from them, we have that really good feeling and we want more of it. We want to do it more. So David has just given Mary the truck and David is like, I'm a hero. I'm a good person. Here, you want some more things? I'll give you more things you want, right? Now, next time he wants to play with the doll, he's not going to necessarily give it to her right away, but he's going to be more likely to give it to her sooner, right? So when he's done with it, instead of just keeping it because he's mad at her, feeling like, oh, it gives me power, he's going to be like, oh, I like that feeling. What happens with humans is we all like power, but we come to learn that in our relations with others, that feeling of supporting and giving and connecting actually is more rewarding to us than that feeling of, oh, I'm in charge. I get my way here. I have power. It's not as rewarding, in fact, right? And so wouldn't it be great for all of our children to learn that at a young age? They'd have so much better relationships and the world would be so much nicer a place to live. So there's so many things that parents can do just in the way they intervene, even with very young children. And if your listeners would like more information on sharing, if they can read English, on my website, ahaparenting.com, there's a search box. You put the word sharing in, and there's a whole article about the research and why it works better to do the kind of sharing I'm talking about, where the child is allowed to keep it till they're done, and how you can support children. Because I know that the folks who are listening today are saying, but poor Mary, she has to wait for the truck. She's just a mess. She's crying. I can't get anything done. I understand. The first few times you do this, Mary will cry and you will have to support Mary. You will have to help her and say, oh, your brother has the truck. Maybe we can use the snowplow instead. Or maybe we can bring the doll over and she can drive the truck when he's ready. Let's find the elephant that's going to drive the truck. You can find something for your child to do while they're waiting. Usually, once they cry, they get that off their chest. It wasn't really about the truck at all. It was about the fact that they always feel like they never get what they want and their brother always gets what he wants, because that's what humans think. They look at someone else and they think, oh, they get what they want, but I don't get what I want. That's what we think. But if she's allowed to tell you how unfair life is, and you hold her and you say, I know, you wish you could have that. You'll have it soon. It's hard to wait. She cries. She's done crying. She goes off and plays happily. And when he comes over the truck, she's like, what's that? Oh yeah, right, truck, you know.
So it's all about helping them to process emotions, the big emotions.
Yes.
And then showing them what to do instead of hitting or taking or pushing, you know, or not cheering.
Yes.
What about if they are older, like if they are 6 or 7?
Well, they still need the words to express their emotions. So maybe a 6 or a 7-year-old, you know, maybe the 7-year-old says to the 5-year-old, you're a baby. And the 5-year-old gets angry and hits, right? Or gets angry and says, I hate you. I want a new brother. And the 7-year-old is building something and, you know, with their Legos, and the 5-year-old just knocks it on the floor. Now you can see that a lot of parents would say, you 5-year-old, you bad kid, you wrecked your brother's tower, or you 5-year-old, you hit your brother. Because let's say the 7-year-old doesn't hit back, but the 7-year-old screams, Mom, Dad, right? And is very upset. We intervene to protect that 7-year-old, as we should. The 7-year-old does not deserve to be hit, and the 7-year-old does not deserve to have their tower knocked on the floor. But they did say something mean to the 5-year-old first that brought it on, right? Mm-hmm. So we can go running in and say, as we're running in, by the way, we're taking a deep breath. We're moving fast to get between them in case there's more hitting or more throwing of towers. But we're also trying to calm ourselves down. We're trying to say to ourselves, it's okay, I can handle this. It's not really an emergency. It's a great opportunity to teach them good skills, right? So we come running in, take our deep breath, make sure no one's being hit, and we say, whoa, 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 something happened here that looks like it upset both of you. Notice we're empathizing with both kids. And the 7-year-old's like, he wrecked my tower. And the 5-year-old's like, you call me a baby, right? And so we go right in the middle of it and we say, you two are both really upset. And we put, notice my hands, one hand's on the 7-year-old, one hand's on the 5-year-old, right? So we've got a hand on both kids on their shoulders. And we're saying, you are really upset. You have something really important you're really upset your Lego got knocked down. And you have something really important to tell your brother. You don't like being called a baby. I mean, if that's what they've just said, right? You just acknowledge what they've both said. And just being acknowledged, they start to simmer down. A lot of parents will say to me, but they're still trying to they're still too angry to work anything out. And maybe they are. Maybe you just need to separate them right now before they can work anything out. But often just acknowledging, you don't like being called a baby. That made you feel really bad. Just acknowledging that. Mm-hmm. Oh, you worked so hard on that Lego tower and now look at it. It's all over the floor. No wonder you're upset, right? Just acknowledging that, right? And then saying, let's take a deep breath. We can work this out. And then having each child tell you might say, you know, who goes first, right? That's always a problem. So if your kids are doing this a lot, I would carry a quarter or some coin in your pocket of your pants, and just be able to pull that out and flip it. And, you know, one side, that's the 7-year-old side, one side, that's the 5-year-old side. And that's the way it always is. And you just flip it. And then that kid gets to go first. And you say, okay, we're going to start now. And it's the 5-year-old's turn. And we're both going to listen carefully. And then it will be your turn to tell your little sister everything you want to tell her. Let's say this is 2 girls. Okay. You want to tell your little sister everything that you want to tell her. But right now we're going to listen hard to your sister. And you're going to tell your big sister what you want to tell her right now. So you say, go ahead and tell your sister how you feel, what you wanted, what you need. And she said, how I feel like you're stupid. It's like, well, that's not a feeling. That's a judgment. And it's a name calling thing we're not doing. It's just as bad as calling you a baby, right? So you would say, sweetheart, you can tell your sister what you're upset about without attacking her. You don't call her names. She doesn't call you names. Our house rule is be kind to each other, right? That's our number one house rule. We're kind to each other. We support each other. So no name calling. You can tell your sister what you need without attacking her. And then the 5-year-old says, I need her to stop calling me a baby. I'm not a baby. And you say, you're not a baby. Can you tell your sister that? Don't call me baby. Don't call me baby. And the big sister goes, well, you act like a baby or whatever. And you turn to the big sister and say, right now, we're not answering. Right now, we're just listening. It sounds like your sister was pretty hurt when you called her a baby. She needs you to listen to her. And then you turn back and the 5-year-old is still, and so you say, you were pretty upset when your sister called you a baby, huh? She says, yeah. You say, okay, we're going to ask your sister to stop calling you names because that's our house rule. Can you ask her that? And she says, stop calling me names. That's our house rule. And if she doesn't say anything else, I'll say to the 7-year-old, your sister's asking you to stop calling her names. Can you agree to that? She goes, all right, but she has to not hurt my Legos or whatever, you know. And you say, so what happened is you called her, she called you a baby and you were so upset that you knocked down her Lego. Is that what happened? Yeah, you know. And you say to the 7-year-old, it sounds like you're pretty upset at your sister. Can you tell her that? I worked so hard on this Lego and you knocked it down. All I did was didn't like how you were acting when you kept whining and begging to play with me. Now we have new information. We have a new clue. You say, so it sounds like your sister was whining and begging to play with you because she really loves to play with you. And you called her a name. She was asking to play with you, but she didn't know how to ask in a good way. And you called her a name. Is that what happened? Yeah. You know, so we're getting them each to acknowledge what they've done. And now we'll say to each of them, you were so mad at your sister that you wrecked her Lego when she called you this name and wouldn't apologize, right? Can you see that was, you know, how did that work out? The best question is always, how'd that work out? She's like, bad. What was bad? Well, the Lego's broken and she's really mad at me. Now she'll never let me play. You know, like she's realizing the consequences of her action. You say, yeah, I think you'll need to make this better with your sister, won't you? Why don't you think about how you could make it better while I ask your sister something? So you were really upset the way she was whining and bothering you. And then you called her a baby, right? And how did that work out, right? So we're helping them work. Now, every parent listening is going to have the same reaction to this. Okay, but I'm not a trained therapist and I've got dinner to get on the table. I can't do this. I don't have time. And what I would say is A, you get better at it as you do it. And B, as you do it, you have to do this intensively for about a month and you'll start hearing your kids use your language. You'll be in the other room and one of them will say to the other one, don't call me names. Our house rule is be kind. And the other one will say, sorry, but stop whining and bothering me. And then you'll be able to say from the other room, hey girls, sounds like you guys are having a hard time. Do you need some help? And you can go in and say, sounds like you really wish you could play with your sister. So you're intervening before things ever get to the calling of names and the wrecking of Legos, right? You're going and intervening before it gets out of hand, right? So it gets a lot easier. And you can either find a way for the little one to grab some Legos and play next to the big one, or the little one can do something else entirely. She was maybe just bored, right? And you can find something else for her to do, like come in the kitchen and help you with dinner. So the point is, it doesn't last this way forever, having to do this intensive work. And the part about not being a therapist, I understand. But what you'll find is, as long as you stay calm and this is the hardest thing. As long as you stay calm, which is the hardest thing, you can keep the kids from continuing to fight. You can help things calm down. Our job is not to decide who's right and wrong. Our job is to help everybody calm down by acknowledging that they have a perspective. It may not be one we agree with. We're so angry that this child keeps hitting the other kid, right? We're so angry about it, but they're not going to stop hitting if we keep doing what we've been doing. They haven't stopped so far. What we've been doing hasn't worked. Why not try something new? And the something new is to acknowledge that the child doing the hitting has a reason too, even if hitting is never okay. as a way to solve problems, which it isn't. They have a reason for doing it, and we need to acknowledge that and help them to use their words instead. We need to give them a voice. So what we're really doing is coaching our kids to say what they want and need in a way that doesn't attack the other person, because then we have an opening to help them work things out.
So that's about coaching them to turn inside and to acknowledge their feelings and their needs, and to tell their siblings about them without attacking them, which seems so simple, like, oh my gosh. And it's so hard, complicated, because as parents, you want to fix everything. Like, you want to fix the situation, fix the feeling, fix the child. And it's hard to us to just stop and let them sort things out. Like, I remember we still have a small box, and when we put inside 6 cards, we draw them. And we called these cards decision cards, because every card was about how can we share. One of them was, we can play together. Another one was, I wait for my turn. Another one was, we don't know what to do, we call, mommy. And I don't know, it took maybe some weeks to try to understand how it works. But when we get it, it was so easy. They would run each time towards this box, sort the cards, pick them, and decide which one is good for this situation.
Isn't that amazing? I love that. It's so, we give them tools, and they're hungry for those tools. They don't want to fight. They just want what they want. And once they learn there's a tool to sort it out, they feel so much better, and they can use the tool.
Exactly.
I love that.
The most difficult thing, as you say, it's about staying calm. And in your workbook, you describe this technique that I love called stop, drop, and breathe. How does it work?
Stop, drop, and breathe just means you stop what you're doing. You're, in this case, maybe you were making dinner. You run into the other room where the kids are fighting, where you heard the loud crash. But as you go, you're taking a deep breath, but you're also dropping your agenda. Your agenda is always to stop them from hurting each other, to stop them from wrecking the Legos, to stop them from screaming at each other, to stop. We want children, we want to control them when we're upset. When we're upset, what we do, all humans, when we're upset, we go into fight, flight, or freeze, right? That's just what humans do, because we're mammals. That's what mammals do. They go into fight, flight, or freeze when they're upset. So if there's a tiger, that makes sense. We might run. And if we can't get away from the tiger, we might freeze and play dead. So the tiger doesn't think they have, oh, that's not interesting. And they wander away, right? That's the freeze part and the flight part. We don't usually do those things with our children. If we were traumatized as babies or little ones, as children, we might do that, because when someone gets angry, we sort of freeze inside. So we might do that with our kids, but usually with our kids, they're not tigers to us. So we don't go into either freeze or flight. What we do is we go into fight, because we're bigger than them. So we can do that. We can go into fight. You don't go into fight with a tiger. So with our children, we go into fight. But what happens when you go into fight? They look like the enemy. So we come running in, and our heart is pounding. And we're like, what's going on? What's going on? And we see one of our children is crying and looking at the Legos that were wrecked. And the other one is looking like, I don't even know them. I didn't have anything to do with it. And we know that's the perpetrator. And we go running over to we ignore the one who's crying. And we run over to the one who did the bad thing. And we say, how could you do that? Your sibling worked so hard on that. How could you do that? You're being so mean to your sibling. You know better, right? And we're yelling at them. It's like suddenly, if we're in fight, they've become the enemy. But our child is never the enemy. So we need to notice that it's normal to get upset. It's normal to think it's a state of emergency. We heard a loud noise and somebody's crying. So it's our job as parents to restore order. But we think we restore order by blaming. We think, oh, that's the problem. Let's take this child over to the naughty step and get rid of them. They're the problem. We're going to make things better by controlling them. That doesn't solve the problem. That's such a primitive way to look at it, right? That's just our fight instinct. It doesn't, when we're in fight, we're not thinking well. Our job when we're in fight is to vanquish that enemy, whatever it is. And we're not thinking. In fact, we know that when we go into fight, all of our attention, all the way our nervous system works, everything gets diverted to the sympathetic nervous system, which is in fight mode, right? It's all primed for fighting. What the blood is all diverted away from the immune system, because we're not busy fighting off an infection. We're fighting. The digestion. Of course, we don't have time to digest a meal. We're fighting. Learning. We can't learn. We're fighting. Like if your children are fighting and you lecture them, they're not going to learn a thing because their brains are in fight mode. Their brains are not in learning mode. And guess what else? We aren't thinking well. All of the blood flow even, it doesn't even go to the parts of the brain that reason and to plan and to think well or to listen. We're in fight mode. So the stop, drop, and breathe is a way of calming the fight response. That's what stop, drop, and breathe is. You stop what you're doing. You drop your agenda just for the moment, whatever your agenda is, helping the kids get along, but not by fighting, right? By other things. So you drop the agenda just for a moment. You take a deep breath because at that moment, your agenda is going to come out as, grabbing somebody too hard by the arm or screaming at the top of your lungs. That's not helpful. So you take a deep breath and that just gives you a chance. It interrupts all of those fight or flight hormones and neurotransmitters. You take a deep breath and suddenly the parts of your neurology that, are pumping out adrenaline and cortisol and the other stress hormones, they're going to be like, wait a minute. She's taking a deep breath. There's no tiger. It's just her toddler. Don't worry about it. Shut off the adrenaline, boys. We don't need more of that, So.
So we drop the agenda, we drop the expectations, we go with open heart and we accept, we empathize. So in order to be able to regulate us, like you describe, we need to somehow stay centered and grounded in, in our everyday life. How do we do that? And many parents ask, especially now in these, pandemic times, when we are all stuck, together. How do we stay centered? How do we stay grounded?
We have to be proactive. We have to take responsibility to take care of ourselves. You can only give your child what you have inside. So you have to make sure you've got enough inside, right? And how does it get there? You give it to yourself. Most of us go through our whole lives thinking that we need so many things, and we need love, and we need understanding, and we need caring. And if we could only make other people give those things to us, we'd have them. That's a recipe for bad relationships. There's actually a better way. And it works so much better. And that is, you start from the same place. I need love. I need understanding. I need caring. Every one of us needs that. How can I start? By giving those things to myself. Once how do you do that? You are patient with yourself. You're forgiving with yourself. You're understanding. You acknowledge your own feelings. You say, oh, you worked so hard today and it still didn't work out. I love you. And you just haven't figured out how to do that yet. You say to yourself, you're practicing, you're getting better at it all the time. You did great today. We all need that from ourselves. Literally, it's not, it's hokey, it's silly, it's great. Actually, it works. It works to give love to ourselves and to be our own best parent. Because inside our heads, most of us are so hard on ourselves. We do something and we mess up and then we say, oh, that was stupid. Well, it was human. Maybe you should have thought more, but maybe you didn't get enough sleep last night, because your kids kept you up. I mean, whatever. So when you do something and you hear yourself say something like, oh, that was stupid of me. Stop, jump in. You wouldn't let someone say that to your child. If your child messed something up and some stranger on the street says to your child, that was stupid of you, you would be like, don't talk to my child that way, right? Well, do that for yourself. Just because something in your mind says it doesn't mean it's true or the right thing to say. You jump in and you say, excuse me, I did my best. And you talk to yourself. You did your best, sweetheart. It wasn't stupid. You're a little sleep deprived. Last night was tough, but you got through it, and you didn't even yell at the kids in the middle of the night. You know, you got through it. You're trying as hard as you can. You need more sleep tonight. We can make this. We can repair this thing, whatever I just did that was stupid. Maybe I just dropped a dish on the floor and it broke, you know, whatever it is. It's like, you know, it's too bad, but it's not a tragedy. I can sweep it up. Nothing matters as much as your relationship with your children, your partner, the people important to you in your life, your loved ones, and yourself. Because there's a way in which your relationship with yourself is the most important of all those relationships. You will never have anyone else as close to you as you are. There's no one else whose job it is to look after you and make sure you have what you need. No one else. I mean, if you're an adult, if you're old enough to have kids, your parents are no longer to blame for whatever you're doing. Mm-hmm. They may have messed up big time, or they may have loved you dearly and still messed up, or maybe they were great parents. It doesn't matter. They did that. You still love them. They're still in your life. You still be respectful and kind to them, but they're not in charge of your life anymore. You're in charge of it. It's your job to take whatever you've got and to make that better, not to blame anyone else. And it's also your job to be your own best parent inside your head, to encourage yourself, to be your own cheerleader. You know, there's research on this in children, that children who are able to be their own best cheerleader are much less anxious and more capable. So when the child is learning to put on their shoes themselves, if a child will say, okay, first you pull open this part, and then you put your foot in, and then you close this part, and then you pull the laces. Oh, wait a minute, tying it. Okay, you do. If they talk themselves through it, right? Or here's the Velcro, you know, if they talk themselves through it, they are more calm about getting it done. They're more able to master the task earlier than other kids their age. And they learn the skills, and they're less anxious in general, right? So they're much more resilient. Wouldn't that be an amazing thing for us to learn that skill of talking ourselves through? I dropped the dish on the floor. Oh, you idiot. I could say that to myself, or I could say, oh no, I dropped a dish. Oh, I know it's so hard when that happens. It's okay. We're going to get through this, right? Can you be your own best cheerleader? Yes.
You're right. We're very hard with ourselves. I mean, it all starts with us. Like even our relationship to the others, yes. It starts how we see ourselves.
Yes.
And
yes.
It's impossible to love, you know, unconditionally our children if we don't love ourselves.
Yes. So true.
Do you have, may I have one last question?
Sure.
Do you have any special advice for like siblings space during this pandemic? Because many parents ask, you know, how do we manage a good relationship between 2 or 3 or 4 children who are all inside the same space all the time and they get to each other's throats like?
Of course. And this is very hard. So first of all, you need to have regular opportunities to work out problems, right? So between 2 kids or between 4 kids, whatever you've got who are having the problem, and you come up with a schedule for your home that works for everybody, that allows everyone to have some time alone, allows there to be quiet time in the house, allows there to be loud and rambunctious time in the house, right? And also that meets basic needs. You know, when you said, how can parents take care of themselves, right? And I talked mostly about how we relate to ourselves, but also parents need to do things like go outside every day. It's get enough sleep, right? Don't drink too much alcohol. There are all kinds of basic things that really help us keep it together, right? And the same thing is true for kids. They need to go outside every day, right? They need to have some time. They need to get enough sleep. They need to have downtime just for themselves, just like their parents do. So we need to set up a schedule that includes that kind of time. But in the downtime, for instance, maybe you have 2 children who share a room. Maybe one of them gets to be in that room and the other one gets to be in mommy's room during the downtime. And mommy's out in the living room or the kitchen, you know, if you have a 2-bedroom place and the children share a bedroom. So that's an example. If you've got 3 kids, one of them's in the living room, one's in the bedroom, one's in mommy's room, you know, and mom has to be, you know, share, you know, going from space to space or sharing the space with one of them quietly or whatever. But the downtime is really important, that they each get some time to themselves. And that doesn't have to be sleeping. If they're young, it might be sleeping. If they're older, it might be listening to a book on audio, or just playing with their Legos quietly. But it has to be something without noise. Nobody is singing in their ears or whistling or yelling or fighting. You know, everybody is quiet around the house for that hour of the day, whatever. They each need some time where they're not engaging.
Yeah, that's excellent. And in order to do that, we have to schedule it like in advance. And everyone will know that, you know, at that time of the day, we're going to all have a downtime. Yeah.
Many parents are frightened to schedule. They think, oh, then we're going to live in a prison. No, actually, it's so much better, because if you don't have a schedule, then every minute of the day is an opportunity for children to fight with you because they want screen time, or argue with each other because one of them wants to go outside, but one of them wants to stay inside, and you have to be with them because you can't just let them go out themselves. So what are you going to do? Whereas if you have a schedule and one of them wants to go outside, you can say, oh, you really wish we could go out now. I know, I'm really looking forward to going out, but we're going to go out after breakfast, or after we clean up this morning, clean up the house, or after, quiet time, whatever, right? So they know it's on the schedule and they can handle it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Laura. It was a pleasure talking to you.
It was great to meet you. Thank you. And I want to encourage your parents. I just want to say to them, don't feel like you have to be a perfect parent. Just do the best you can. And every night, look at what you're happy with that you did and build on those strengths. And soon you'll notice that you have your ratio is improving. Your ratio of good moments to bad moments, is getting better. That's all you need to do. Keep improving the ratio, have more good moments to bad moments, and you'll find you're heading in the right direction.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.